What happens if you fast for 24 hours? In this video, we are going to talk about everything you need to know, as I personally decided to try this eating pattern for 4 weeks, and I would love to share my experience with you. So, enjoy your snack while you follow me as I go without one. The answer might seem very straightforward, but not eating for an entire day is disputable. So, I decided to tackle this issue in more depth so that you will know what to expect. In this video, you'll find out what happens if you go without food for 24 hours, which are the benefits you can get, what are the side effects, what are the most common mistakes you need to be aware of to avoid the pitfalls, and finally, I compiled a list of the frequently asked questions about fasting for 24 hours, and I will answer them. If you don't know what intermittent fasting is, pause this video and watch my other episode called Intermittent Fasting, A Guide to Fasting, as that will set your foundation about this topic. You can find the link in the description below. If you have already watched that episode, here is a brief to refresh your memory. Most people assume that intermittent fasting is a diet. However, that is not correct. Intermittent fasting is an eating pattern. It doesn't indicate which foods you should eat, but rather when you should eat them. It's also not when you can't afford to eat, because payday isn't until tomorrow. What you need to remember is that your body is either in a feasting or a fasting state. The fasting state begins 8 hours after you've had your last meal, and during this state, your body burns the fats in order to get its energy. There are a few different eating patterns you can adopt, such as 16-8, 18-4, or you can fast for entire days at a time, which basically means to fast for 24 hours, twice a week. Because of its powerful benefits, intermittent fasting has started to gain more attention lately. Nevertheless, fasting has been a lifestyle throughout human evolution. Think of our ancestors. They didn't have a fridge to store their food, no supermarkets, or any other useful technologies. Sometimes, they had to live without food for extended periods of time. In fact, fasting is more natural than having 3 to 4 meals per day. Fasting is also done for religious purposes in Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and Buddhism. Different studies suggest that intermittent fasting has many benefits to offer, such as an increase in the human growth hormone, a lowered insulin, cellular repair, and gene expansion. Moreover, fasting has been found very effective when it comes to weight loss, inflammation reduction, heart health, cancer, and brain health. So, with that being said, let's talk about what happens if you decide to fast for 24 hours, twice a week. As I ran this experiment for 4 weeks, I had a total of 8 days of fasting, and I will tell you what happened each day, starting from day 1. I kept a very detailed journal where I wrote down my thoughts, emotions, feelings, and my overall mood as I went through the process. The eating pattern I adopted was from noontime until the next day at around the same time. That means my only meal was at 12 p.m., and I did not eat anything until the next day at 12 p.m. However, during the time of fasting, I drank water, coffee, and green tea without any added creamers or sugar. Alright, starting with day 1, I can already tell you that it was the most challenging day of them all, because I wasn't used to the process. Since I had my last meal at 12 p.m., I tried to go without food until the next day, but I failed, and I couldn't hold myself back from eating. On that day, I found myself anxious for no reason. I couldn't focus meditating, and I wasn't productive at all. However, the strangest thing is that I couldn't go without food for longer than 5 hours, which is pretty embarrassing, considering that I can usually go without eating for 16 hours. I believe that what happened is that I wasn't mentally ready to fast for 24 hours, and I wasn't ambitious enough to stick to the plan. So, I started again the following day. Moving on to the second day, or better said, first day, here is when I probably realized the most important aspect, which then helped me to stay on the track. Just looking back at what happened the other day, I realized that the right mindset was mandatory if I wanted to succeed. And so, I made a commitment that I'll stick to the plan until the end no matter what. I have successfully fasted for 24 hours, but I could not focus on my work, my meditation practice, and I found myself being nervous because I was thinking about food most of the time. The first day is when the cravings are at their peak. Thus, I decided to go for a drive as I usually find that relaxing, and it helped me to get rid of my obsessive thoughts about food. I also avoided driving by my favorite fast food places, as not to tempt myself. Who needs the added temptation of Starbucks? Things started to change on the second day of fasting, and I could tell a difference right after I woke up. I wasn't anxious anymore, and I was actually willing to go through the process and see what happens. I ate about noontime, and then I started to get some work done. What surprised me the most is that after about 8 hours after I had my meal, I felt a bit weakened. I started to get a bit of brain fog, and I could not focus on my work anymore. In that moment, I felt the need to eat something sweet as my glucose level was going down, but I kept telling myself that I almost made it and I called it a day. I went to watch a movie, as that was not physically or mentally demanding. And that was the end of my second day of fasting. Overall, it was a good day, but I swear buttered popcorn is a cruel mistress when you are fasting. After that, I started to eat normally for the next 4 days. And so, the following week began. On my third day of fasting, I didn't really know what to expect, but I kept telling myself that everything will be fine. And so it was. I started to get hungry about noontime, and after I had my meal, everything went as planned until the end of the day. On the fourth day of fasting is when I started to see some minor benefits. My lack of focus and inability to concentrate vanished, and suddenly I felt a positive shift in my awareness. It is a bit hard to explain this phenomenon, but I found myself being energetic and agile at the end of the day, whereas before, I would have been tired, angry, and unmotivated. My overall mood was significantly changed, and I was excited about the week to come to see what will happen. On the fifth and sixth day of fasting, I started to appreciate the fact that hunger comes in waves. I realized that I did not get progressively hungry, and that my body started to adapt to its new eating schedule. I would usually go hungry around 5 p.m., but then, after an hour or so, the hunger feeling will fade. I was able to observe the fact that I would get a bit of brain fog, anxiety, and irritation around the time I felt hungry, but those disappeared once the hunger feeling was gone. Fast forward to the next week on my 7th and 8th day, I can say that the insights I had during my previous experiences helped me a lot. I knew what to expect, I knew how my body will react, and I knew what to do in order to avoid any drawbacks. The symptoms had started to fade away, and I found myself in that alert state of being again. There was a bit of anger, brain fog, and uncertainty, but nothing too significant to affect my overall mood or productivity. I guess there's a reason why mood and food rhyme. So let's sum up everything that happened during this experiment by answering some of the most frequently asked questions. The first question is, what are the benefits of fasting for 24 hours? The only visible benefits I experienced were an increase in energy, an alert state of being, and a stronger willpower. I am sure that some other non-visible benefits happened inside my body, such as fat burn, but that wasn't obvious for me, especially because I fasted for only 8 days. If you decide to fast longer than that, I strongly believe that other benefits will become visible as well. Who knows if I go longer? I might get ripped like The Rock. The next question is, what are the drawbacks of fasting for 24 hours? In my opinion, the brain fog, anxiety, anger, the lack of motivation, and the cravings are the most significant side effects that I experienced. These side effects would eventually diminish in time, but they held me back in doing my work as they were quite strong for the first 2 days. In the end, I managed to deal with the anxiety, lack of motivation, and the cravings, but the brain fog was definitely a major drawback. The worst part about it was that I cannot do anything to get rid of this particular symptom, so I had to deal with it. The next commonly asked question is, how can I avoid these side effects? Well, I believe that some of these side effects are relevant only to some people, as you might experience something else. Still, the best way to get over any negative effects is to remind yourself that once your body adapts to the new eating pattern, they will eventually disappear. However, to get rid of your obsessive thoughts about food, I recommend you do something you love. In my case, it was driving. But you can do anything you want as long as it makes you feel relaxed and calmer. Yet, I wouldn't recommend any physical activities, as they usually demand more energy to be consumed. You don't want to fast until exhaustion. That's the opposite effect we want. Should I try to fast for 24 hours? And if so, How can I start? Is the next frequently asked question. On the one hand, fasting is not for everybody, and it is not the main thing you can do to improve your health. If you wish to become healthier, focusing on your diet, exercising, and better sleeping is what you want to implement first. On the other hand, if you've got all these handled, fasting for an entire day is definitely something you should try if you want to experience the benefits mentioned above. Furthermore, it can teach you some important lessons about health, and it'll strengthen your willpower. However, do not try intermittent fasting without consulting a doctor if you suffer from any medical condition, such as diabetes, problems with blood sugar regulation, low blood pressure, or if you are underweight. Also, if you are a woman who is trying to conceive, pregnant, or breastfeeding, do not try to fast. Also, if you decide to try it, remember that having the right mindset is the key if you want to succeed. Make a commitment that you'll stick to the plan no matter what. Decide what your feeding periods will be, and see if it really works for yourself. If you are one of those people who feel better while fasting, then make it a habit. If not, do not worry about it. Work on something else. May I recommend cooking or becoming a foodie? Wait, I guess I'm thinking about food again. I hope I've managed to cover everything you've wanted to know about fasting for 24 hours. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any other things you'd like to know. I'll try to answer all your questions. Thank you for watching this video, and if you find value in this content, please click that like button for me. Intermittent fasting is just one of the many aspects when it comes to improving yourself. There are many other techniques I would love to share with you in the future, so make sure you don't miss any of that by subscribing to this channel.